Welcome back. This is From Battle to Business with your host, Dean Van Dyke. And today I'm fortunate to have Darlene Green, a retired U.S. Navy commander, as well as a health and technology consultant. Welcome, Darlene.
Thank you, Dean. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, it's great to meet you and great to learn more about you. And so, in 60 seconds or less, tell us who you are.
In 60 seconds or less, retired Navy commander that had several commanding officer tours. So the last one over 1,200 people, passion for taking care of people, created a returning warrior weekend workshop for people back in 2005 that helped our veterans, our active duty coming back from overseas, better integrate into their civilian world and with their families. That program was then, I spread it through the Southwest from Arizona, and then from the Southwest, it spread through the nation, and it's still in existence today. Really proud of that. It has yellow ribbon panel funding. Have been in a variety of positions from vice president at McAfee to a dean of a boarding school to a director of client services for a network and security technology company. But my passion lately came about from when my husband contracted early Alzheimer's or was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's, and we began the search for his health options and found technology that I wish I would have known about a couple of years ago, but which has transformed him, myself, my family, my friends, so many of our health. And I just want to get it in the hands of anyone who's listening, and the veterans particularly, who I feel like, people sacrifice for their country. They donate their time. They do not need to donate their mind and their body as well.
Although we do, as you know, veterans, some sacrifice all. This weekend, we're getting ready to honor those that are still with us and veterans. And so, but I know that the Navy had a pivotal within your life. I mean, our military experience is usually pivotal depending on what you do with it. But tell us a little bit about that Navy experience, being a commander, and how it shaped who you are today.
Sure. So I have some funny stories. One of my first commanding officer positions, I went to Orange, Texas, and I was in the Southeast. I was the first woman commanding officer of a base. And I was trying to figure out, how do I garner the respect of these people? There weren't a lot of women, in the military there, but certainly even with master's degrees there. And I found I was sort of struggling because I had things happen like, guys, a judge from Louisiana that was one of my reservists walked up and kissed me on the mouth, right? And it was like, what are you doing? You can't do that. And he's like, well, why not? I'm happy to see you. I'm like, let me show you how to shake my hand, So I've been trying to figure out how do I transition this entire group of people into understanding and respecting me as their first commanding officer that was a woman. So I challenged everyone in my command to a competition on our physical fitness test, push up for push up, sit up for sit up. And it kind of came out, it came tumbling out of my mouth before I actually really thought about it. This was my first physical fitness test after a C-section delivery of my second child, but I was bound and determined. So I worked on that daily. I had guys that were going into Navy BUDS training to become Navy SEALs one day. I had mostly as young, fit, strapping guys. So anyway, we came down to the day of the competition, and I had a young BUDS candidate run over to me and say, ma'am, I did 135 push-ups. How many did you do? And I turned to the guy counting and I said, how many did I do? And he goes, she did 136, man. And he was just like, what? No.
Nice.
And so I think I did like 127 push-ups, or 137 push-ups, or 36 push-ups, and 127 sit-ups. And anyway, only had to award one person with an award that day, and it was a woman whose run time was faster than my swim time. So suffice it to say, garnered the respect instantly because fitness matters to folks. So that was a funny story. That as I left that, my wardroom presented me with a sword, which is symbolic and says, we'll follow you in a battle anywhere. I'll never, ever be moved by a gift more than that one. That was really huge. The Returning Warrior Weekend Workshop that I created, that was huge for me because it had such intrinsic reward for me. Most of the time, people didn't know that I had helped to create it. But my final weekend of the military and my retirement, they awarded me with a medal, and they basically acknowledged and talked about my contribution there. And I had like 120 people come up and say to me, you saved my life, or you saved my marriage, or this was so meaningful to me, and with tears in their eyes, and salty Navy chiefs, right? So this was just really, really huge. So I would say that, one of the things I learned in the military was I can take the leadership training that they have given
Mm,
me and I can apply it in any kind of place. And one of the frustrations I had when I was leaving the military and transitioning to business was that the recruiters saying, well, which industry do you want to go in? And I said, well, I can go into any industry. No, you have to pick a specific industry. Well, why
mhm,
do I have to pick a specific industry? I've had experience in all sorts of industries. So I ended up landing in technology in the network and network security hardware kind of part of the industry. And then another funny story, when I went to go apply to be vice president at McAfee, the funniest thing was the HR officer asked me like 7 questions. Well, do you have 15 years of experience in architectural engineering? No. Oh, do you have a strong background in CRM and SaaS? No. Oh, well, do you have this, that? No, 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 no. Well, would you move to Santa Clara or Plano, Texas? No, I'm not moving. I'm staying right here in Arizona. My parents just came down from Alaska. I'm finally with family. And she said, listen, you have a very impressive resume, but this is just not going to be a good fit. But the CIO kept saying, I want to interview her. And the HR officer said, no, she doesn't meet any of the criteria. So he finally interviewed me and said, you know, looking at your resume, I wasn't sure how you would be a good fit, but actually, I don't have trouble with the engineering. I have trouble with the things that you're really good at, the leadership, the
mhm,
communication, process improvement, the customer service, all of these, the all of those things, right? So I ended up getting the job, and much to the dismay of the HR officer. And he said to me like a year later, you were the best decision I ever made. So I think when you move job to job to job in the military, it was at least a decade along the way. And every job I think, oh my gosh, can I do that? I don't know that
mm,
language. I don't know that job. I don't know what I'm doing. They're putting me in charge. And then somewhere along the way, after 10 years, I remember thinking, bring it on. I got this. And I felt that way going from a network situation to a software situation, and then from a software to dean of a boarding school. Similar story. There's no way you're getting this job. They're PhDs. They've got
yeah,
millions of years of background. I'm like, it's a leadership school. I know leadership, so did that. So I've really had a lot of fun, and I think it's just given me the confidence to know that I can do whatever you throw
mhm.
at me, and I will do it well because leadership is so transferable.
It is. It's one of the skills where, there's, I've had the question posed, is leadership, are you born with it or can you acquire the skill? And you can definitely acquire the skill. I think it's, a lot of it has to do with your mindset. Um, but I think the mindset that you bring to the table, and the military puts us in situations that, I wouldn't have, I didn't think it was that big a deal at the time, but I actually have sunk a ship. It was a training exercise, but hey, um,
I'm glad
you
to hear
know,
it was a training exercise, Dean.
it was a workup for a deployment, and I never thought that it was that big a deal, right? Because that's just what we did. And later on, I actually use that as kind of an icebreaker. A lot of times, is like, so what do you do? I said, well, I used to sink ships. How about you? And they're like, it's like one of those, what? And but so before the show, we talked a little bit about what you're doing with the stem cell area, and I know that you were on a mission. Your husband has Alzheimer's, and my mom suffered with dementia for 10 years, and until she finally passed. So tell us about the technology. I've thought about stem cell for my shoulder to regenerate it, and I've read about it. Haven't taken the plunge yet, but tell us about that and in your journey to find that. And you were talking pre-show, just the amazing benefits that you've experienced with it.
Yeah, sure. So just I guess the diagnosis came a few years ago for the early Alzheimer's, and we, the only medicine that's out there actually creates a brain bleed in 50% of people. So that's
Wow.
not an option, and there aren't really any other good approaches. So I really did a lot of research and looked into what's possible, and we tried a lot of modalities. We did IV stem cell therapy where we went out of country 4 times in a year, and both he and I got IV stem cell therapy. We didn't really see any improvement. We then did hyperbaric chamber where actually we did that 3 times a week for a month. That's also expensive. And that didn't really make any things any better. We tried ozone therapy, blood spinning ozone therapy. We bought our own ozone machine. We have a hydrogen water maker. We follow the Dr. Bredesen protocol. We certainly revamped the entire diet, which was pretty clean anyway, but we then took out every bit of alcohol, soda, anything genetically modified, all if it's not a high quality fat, certainly made it low carb, and did very clean grass-fed, grass-finished proteins of such nature, but it added strength training, high intensity training, sleep protocols, all the things that you could do. Really, we're not seeing any improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened then was we were finally at a point in time where honestly, he was a bit of a shell of his former self. He was disengaged from conversations. I think they were just too challenging for him. He was napping 3.5 hours a day and falling asleep about 7 p.m. at night. He was, if he did engage, he was several conversations behind. He was no longer making any attempt to be funny. And that's really core to his personality. So it was really hard for me to watch him no longer try to be funny. Certainly he was asking me the same questions. Anybody that's working with anyone with dementia knows that, they ask you the same question 7 times in 3 minutes and you act like it's the first time you've heard it. So we were really at a place of, loss and significant loss. And I had a friend who knew I'd gone out of country for stem cells, and we'd spent, 10,000 for him, 10,000 for me, 4 times, so 80,000. And that didn't include travel or the room and board, and not really seen much. So they said, look, you really want to try this stem cell act. It's basically 2 months ago, I would have called it a stem cell activation patch, but I have to be careful and crosswalk this. The FDA has come out and said stem cells, even your own, are a drug. And so I can't say that anymore, even though there are double-blind placebo-controlled studies. What I have to say is that this patch elevates and activates a copper peptide in your body called GHKCU, and that elevates and activates and rejuvenates your stem cells. So what happened was, in the very first week of wearing these patches, he didn't sleep at all. He didn't nap for that 3.5-hour nap. He didn't fall asleep at 7 p.m. He was chattier like a dam broke, and he had 2 years of conversation ready to come out. He was with it, flying quickly, wasn't asking me the same questions repeatedly, and he was back to his funny personality and flirty. That was week 1, Dean. That was week 1. So I was just elated. And then the second week, he got the best sleep he'd experienced, and we had really worked hard on sleep. And when I say work hard, I mean, we put red lights in the bathroom so we don't have white lights at night. We don't eat 3 hours before bed. We exercise. We take supplements. We get our eyes on the morning sun. We wear the glasses that block light. All the things. We were getting 15 minutes of deep sleep for him. So the second week, when he experienced 1 hour and 25 minutes of deep sleep, which is so critical because that's when the toxins go the opposite direction and can get out of the brain, right? So that was huge, 1 hour and 25 minutes. And then at the 2.5-month mark, he regained the ability to whistle. He regained the ability to drum to the beat. His blood pressure dropped 37 points from, I think it was like 172 over 94 down to 135 over 87. So huge drop. And then at the 5-month mark, he regained his ability to smell. And the sense of smell was lost 15 years ago. So really amazing neuro stuff going on, right? And that's just his story. Like, I have a story too. If you're interested in hearing my story, I'll try to make it really brief.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear it, because I mean, this is, so like I said, I've done some reading on this, not as extensively as what you've done, but I know the power of our own body. And don't get me wrong, I probably shouldn't say this because my cardiologists hear this, but so, I've been on a statin for years. I mean, I have had chest pain that they can't figure out what's going on. And probably 4 months ago, it really started to, I really wasn't feeling good. And I said, all right, there's only, because I had stopped, I haven't touched a lick of alcohol in almost 2 years. And I'm like, it's got to be this statin. So I just stopped taking it. And lo and behold, I'm feeling better. Now my cardiologist and I are going to have a conversation just before Thanksgiving. But so I know the benefits of, what our own body can do even with the stem cells and just the, how it can repair the body. So yeah, I'd love to hear your story as well.
And before I even say that, while we're talking about the heart, there was a study, a double-blind placebo-controlled study done where people who wore this X39 patch for 6 weeks the cardiovascular system began functioning as if it were 8 weeks younger.
Wow.
And there was another study on the brain, which is what I was watching happen in my husband. And then I'll tell you what happened for me as well. But in a brain study in 2019, they did EEG before someone started wearing the X39, then 3 weeks later, and then 6 weeks later. And you wear the patch. It looks like this tiny little quarter-sized Band-Aid. I'll tell you how it works in a little bit. In the first EEG, there's just this red circle of mess. It's hypercoherence, it's inflammation, it's ADHD, it's PTSD, it's anger, it's like an LA traffic jam. It's not a well-functioning, communicating brain. It's not doing task processing very well. At the 3-week mark, after wearing the X39 3 weeks, you'll see colors coming in, yellows and blues and greens and all the right colors showing improved balance. And at the 6 weeks point, an entirely different picture with amazing results. And people reported those amazing results that included, yes, it increased the GHKCU, but it also supported cell and nerve regeneration. That's huge. It balanced the brain. It improved coherence. It improved the nervous system. It lowered anxiety. It decreased brain inflammation, and it improved the memory and focus and just cognitive brain functioning. In fact, it improved task processing ease and speed so much. The more complex the task, the better the improvement. So I watched that happen for my husband, and I experienced it myself. And, I won't go into the litany of things, but I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia. My heart isn't pumping enough blood to my brain, and so I get blackouts and just pass out. If I get overheated. So I had a couple of times where I conked out and like hit my head on the corner of the wall or the bath, or they had to do all these tilt tests and other things to figure out what was wrong. And in the end, it's sort of like you have low blood pressure. We want to give you a medicine to increase your blood pressure. Yuck, right? Fludrocortisol to increase your blood pressure. That doesn't sound like a very good solution. I'm not a big fan of pharmaceutical meds. I'm not a big fan of statins either. But I will tell you that the worst thing I was experiencing though was not those things. The worst thing was depression. I had broken my foot. I had sprained my ankle. I was not able to work out. I was sort of isolated, and I was having to ask my husband to bring me a glass of water. And every time I did, it was like deer in the headlights. Like, I don't really know how to do that for you. So I was finally understanding this is where we are. And I became depressed. I wanted to cry every day. I was very sad. And so in that first week, first of all, Ice Wave is a patch that takes you out of pain. And I know we have a lot of veterans. We have a lot of people in the world that are in pain. I am not a person that Vicodin, Percocet, morphine, none of these things work very well for me. So I was in significant pain. I even had a surgery. None of those things work. Ice Wave is amazing. It blocks the pain signal, takes you out of pain. That was huge for me. After 5 months of pain, to finally be out of pain was huge. But I also stopped having regular headaches. I stopped having to take that fludrocortisol medicine. My depression lifted. My mood lifted. I was joyful. I was grateful. I had high energy. My rosacea went away, which I'd had forever. My dry skin, which I'd had forever, went away. So my stress eating and my emotional eating went away. I dropped 10 pounds effortlessly. I mean, all of these things, right? The aches and pains of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue went away. So, and that's just the two of us. Like, my sister had chronic microscopic colitis for 6 years, had tried the IV stem cells, had tried the steroids, had tried the antibiotics. 3 weeks on the anti-inflammation patch and the X39 patch, and her microscopic colitis went away. Her plantar fasciitis went away. I mean, there's story of people with Agent Orange leukemia where they are literally out of bed and running around in 2 weeks. So there's just nothing that stem cells can't do. And a lot of people have heard of stem cells. You talked about Tony Robbins' book. It really helped put stem cells on the map. But if you don't know what stem cells are, they can become anything in your body. They reduce inflammation and they trigger old cell death of the bad cells that we need to die and go away, like cancer cells. And then they can become bone or tissue or cartilage or anything your body. They can be brain or heart or lungs, anything your body needs. And so that's what's so powerful about them. We don't know where they're going to go and when they're going to go, but They can do it. And so there's studies, like people can actually Google in PubMed GHKCU, which is that copper peptide that then makes the stem cells, and you can see the stem cells are increased from GHK. People can get injections of GHKCU. In fact, one doctor was doing 4 injections a day and not seeing the same results as the elevation of GHKCU of this patch. But GHKCU does other things like protecting the lung cells. It's an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. It's amazing for the brain and nerves. We talked about some of that. It's amazing. It reduces the fibrinogen synthesis, which is the top predictor of cardiovascular heart disease. It increased myostatin, which inhibits heart failure. It has amazing anti-cancer functions, including resetting programmed cell death of human cancer cells. It doesn't affect healthy cells, though. It repairs damaged DNA. It resets genes to growth or cancer inhibition. And then it does amazing things for skin and hair, collagen. My brown spot went away. My lines are tight and my whole skin is tighter, not to mention softer, but the reduced photo damage is clear. And this hair growth, like I have these little broccoli sprouts. I still like a sprout forest because they haven't grown long enough to like sit down. My husband's big bald spot closed in and chestnut brown hair came in. I mean, this is just like the most miraculous thing. And it's working off of a technology. Light technology has been around 5,000 years, Dean. People know about light technology, but they just don't, they think it maybe, they used to think it was kind of woo-woo, but people kind of know now, you need to go outside and get in the sun and have 15 minutes to get your vitamin D. People understand the sun is going to elevate your vitamin D. It's going to elevate the melanin on your skin and give you a suntan. That is photobiomodulation, and that's how this patch works. And you being in the military, and all of our veterans listening, our active duty military listening, know that if I looked at you with night vision goggles, I would see light inside of you. You have light inside of you. So this patch works by like a little mirror. It's basically a non-transdermal patch that contains specific organic materials and nanocrystals that's creating a lattice structure that's reflecting your own light back at a very specific wavelength that's elevating that copper peptide. And there's a suite of patches, and they all are at a different wavelength that is elevating a different peptide. And so it's safe. There's no drug. There's no contraindications. There's no modality that you can't use this with. You can stay on your medicines and use this. You might need to check your medical scans quickly, because in a month or two, you might find you don't need to be on a blood pressure medicine. You don't need to be on a cholesterol medicine. You don't need to be on that thyroid medicine anymore. Lots of people report having dramatic reductions in their medicines. If not reductions, they certainly reduce pain meds very quickly. So it's really, in fact, in 24 hours, one patch can reset 4,000 genes to their younger, healthier state. Wow. It's just amazing. So people typically report amazing results in 3 to 6 weeks. Some take longer. They say wear it a month for every decade you are old to reset and reactivate all the copper peptide to activate all those stem cells. But there's just, from bulging discs to, the guy that wrote this book, How to Reverse Aging, by Dr. John Harmon, A Comprehensive Guide to Copper Peptides. He had a right branch bundle blockage. And Dean, if you know anything about right branch bundle blockages, there's nothing you can do for that. There's no surgery, there's no medicine, there's nothing you can do. And it really limits your life. Well, 14 months later, he went back and had a scan done again after being on X39 and Neon, the anti-inflammation patch, and with the copper peptide elevating patch, and found it was just gone. It had disappeared. So amazing things happening for people all over with all sorts of things, because what can't stem cells do? So it's really given me amazing hope. And I'm kind of mad I didn't know about it 2 years ago. I did a lot of research, Dean. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research on stem cells. I did a lot of research on everything. Where was this? So I'm the person that, I posted on Facebook when my daughter graduated from the Naval Academy. And then 3 years later, I posted when my daughter graduated from the Air Force Academy. And that was it. Like, that was my social media footprint. If you would have asked me if I would ever do a podcast, I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you. There's no way. But I am so passionate about this because we've had such amazing, and I could tell you, my friend that has 5 autistic children that she's helped to treat that have improved dramatically. And, suicidal relative that is lifted out of the crowd of the depression. And, you name it, there's a story around it.
Is this for everybody, or is there, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
it is. There's only one person that type that ought not, or at least ought to consult with a doctor about it. And that is, and I have to be really careful. Let me just put out that I need to say that Lifeway products are not intended to cure, treat, or diagnose or prevent any disease. That's a disclaimer we have to make. We're a general wellness product, FDA compliant, just like a Band-Aid, because we don't have any medicine in there.
Mhm.
But even if we do those things, we can't say that we do those things. But if you have somebody else's organ in your body, you've had a transplant,
Mhm.
this is going to up your immune system so much that you need to be under careful supervision.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense because of the rejection possibility. Yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, they're often on immune suppressants kind of medicine. So you just have to watch that carefully. And that's not to say that there haven't been people who have gone on it and seen amazing results. We just want to make sure that we're really careful. But there are people patching their kids, their pets, we have a whole line for pets of AccuLife. It's marketed for them, and their veterinarians are using it for pain. There are a lot of friends of mine who are faster to patch their pets than they are their own bodies. Yeah, it's significant. And since the X39 came out, the company has exploded in growth, 20 times growth in the last 4 years
Wow.
because of the impact of this product. I mean, and it's really, there are over 90 clinical studies. It's not like this is woo-woo. This is very well researched, a lot of double-blind placebo-controlled studies, patents, and we're distributed in over 70 countries. You don't need a prescription. You can research it on my website. You can see the videos on how it works. You can buy it from there. You can consult, you can reach out and say, which ones do you think would work best for me? And I'm happy, I would be delighted to help with that. In fact, I can even arrange for a Zoom call, a special Zoom call for your audience with a doctor that's very natural minded and could answer questions. So, there's just a ton of, there's no good excuse to not try it. It's not even expensive. It's $99 for a 1 month supply of patches. You wear the patch 12 hours on and you throw it off. And if you don't like it sticking on your skin, you can put it on the outside of your shirt. You could attach it to the inside of your shirt. It could be in the pocket. It's gonna work. And there's no place in particular it has to be. So it's really amazing technology. And I just hope, we have so many veterans in need, in
Mhm.
pain, emotionally in pain, mental health issues.
We do.
This has amazing results. I've experienced it. I've seen other people experience it. It's proven in studies to have lots of people experience it.
Well, I can definitely hear the passion. I mean, it's things like this from a natural perspective, natural path, because in the military, what was a typical thing when you went to see the medical staff? Oh, here's 800 milligrams of ibuprofen.
Right. That's right.
And I don't know how many digestive systems that destroyed. But when you think about the power of the body, of its ability to regenerate, of its ability, I mean, if you stoke that fire, right?
Yeah.
Um, because as we get older, things do start to break down. I just did a Spartan race in September.
Oh, good for you.
That was yeah, I signed up for another one, so I must like pain, and I must love the pain of it. But it was, it's interesting how our bodies respond to different contaminants, because a little bit of my family history. So my dad smoked for years
Mm.
and was exposed to contaminants he was a diesel mechanic, so the exhaust and everything. And he passed away at 65 with lung cancer.
Sorry.
My mom smoked right along with him. Never. She did have breast cancer, but that was caught early enough, and she's like, take them off. I don't need them anymore. This is kind of a funny joke, but she passed away from dementia, which I think was driven more from depression than anything. But she never got a, there was no lung cancer. So so the body's an amazing,
It is.
it's so amazing to what it can do. But so no, I mean, I understand with Alzheimer's. I saw my aunt go through it years ago. Um, and so I'm just astounded at how things have improved, how things have, so, but how did you, so you said you wish you knew about it 2 years ago. How did you find it? I mean, what?
So a friend of mine who knew that I had gone out of country for stem cells and said, this has tremendously improved my family. She has a daughter that is 16 who was basically testing at a kindergarten level academically and had constantly been on ADHD, had not stopped moving like this since she was born. And in 15 days, she was a different child. She was calmer. At
Wow.
5 weeks, her test scores went from kindergarten to upper third grade, lower fourth grade. And then at the 9-month mark, she retested and had executive functioning as a 16-year-old. So her whole world has changed. This was a child that could not be left behind. She was combative. She argued about everything. She was just not able to learn, and they tried. And all of a sudden, she's just like learning how to count money and learning how to, and she's talking about living an independent life. This has transformed her life. She's got the cousin that has had Agent Orange veteran with leukemia who
Mm.
was bedridden and told, we have to give you this medicine. It's going to kill you, but it will give you a higher quality of life until you die. And he got on the patches, and in 2 days was out of pain, bouncing around, not using his walker, and in 2 weeks was traveling, went to USS Arizona on a bucket trip to with no walker, with no wheelchair. His white cell count dropped. He is living a very high quality of life, and he was on death's door. So
Mm.
she's the person that introduced it to me, and I was like, wow, just by direct sales. And I love that. I trusted her enough to try it. A lot of people think, well, this sounds too good to be true. Okay, well, what do you have to lose? I can tell you I was a skeptic to begin with. Okay, but there's over 300 Olympic athletes were wearing our LifeWave patches in the 2008 Olympics. Ivory Sully said Tom Brady is wearing these patches. Really? So if Serena Williams and Michael Phelps and David Beckham and all of these elite athletes are wearing them, they would not be wearing them in the Olympics if there was anything that was going into their body that could not be trusted. They would never
Right.
risk their Olympic careers, right? So yeah, I think that there's just stem cells they were what made us, so they
Mm-hmm.
can do anything. And that hope, if I were to listen to, I mean, my initial visit to Banner Alzheimer's was simply, yep, this is where he is, come back in a year, we'll see how much he's declined. That was it. You can
Wow.
try this medicine if you want to, but it won't really cure anything. It might help with symptoms, but actually a large data analysis on that particular medicine suggested it actually made dementia come earlier and faster. So that's not good. And when I asked about that, I'm like, well, what about the meta-analysis that suggested this makes it speeds up? And he said, well, I don't know about that. Well, I'll send it to you, I said. So not good options out there.
No, and that's that. I was talking with another veteran a few weeks ago, and his wife has had cancer since 2008, and they actually go out of country because of the challenges with our medical system and with the treatments and things like that. And so, this is first of all, I love your passion about it. I love the just hearing about a natural treatment or a natural solution. I won't call it a treatment, a natural solution. And I have a feeling I know one of these answers, but we need to land the plane here and bring the podcast in for a landing. But what are 3 books you'd recommend and why?
Yeah. So actually, they might be different than you expect. One of my absolute most transformative book was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I
Oh,
absolutely think the world of that book. And I had both my daughters read it. I actually have shared it in a workforce environment. It has transformed how I think about things, and it's absolutely a must read. It's not very long, and it's a little weird in the beginning. It's got a little weird in the end, but it is the nuggets are gold and worth really taking in. The other would be Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck.
mm,
That's also really changed the way I think about things, like how I speak to my children or how I speak to people in the workforce, and making sure that is completely different. And then I guess the last one would be any book by John Maxwell, but maybe the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. But you could just pick Leadership 101. You could just pick any of his
It's
books.
true.
They're all just amazing. I actually had an opportunity to hear him speak recently at our Life Wave conference. He was a guest keynote speaker, and man, was he fantastic.
He is. I listen to his Minute with Maxwell pretty much every day, and so I love hearing him speak. And so, where can my audience go to find out more about you and the amazing work that you're doing?
Thank you, Dean. I am reverseaging.com. You can watch videos on how this all works. You can dive into the studies. You can see the patents. You can learn all about GHKCU. You can hear the inventor talking to practitioners if you want to get into the medical stuff that's way over my head. You can listen to NFL players talk about it and testimonials. And you can also just reach out to me there. I'm happy to provide that consultation with people to help them understand more. And yeah, I am reverseaging.com. You can order product there, in fact. And then if you do, I'll reach out with you on an email and talk about, the only requirement is make sure you drink lots of water, half your body weight in ounces in water. That's really kind of the only thing you have to do.
I do that every day.
Good for you. Not everybody does.
No, well, not a lot of people probably don't know what you should be drinking. But no, this has been great. I've enjoyed having you on. And what I love to do is give my guests the final word. So I will give you the final word.
Well, Dean, I really want my final word to be thank you to you. Thank you for all that you're doing for our military, active and veterans, and also civilians to learn more about our military. I think that that's huge and a credit. I really appreciate the work that you do. And I guess I would say, don't accept what Western medicine and pharmaceutical doctors who have been trained in curriculums that were built by pharmacy companies. Don't accept their diagnosis and defeat. There is hope for everyone, for anything, and it's your stem cells.
Well, thank you so much, Darlene.
Thank you, Dean.